On a highway stretched along pastures surrounded by hills, a station wagon sways left and right while making its way through the highway. The wagon is driven by a middle-aged man named Humbert. He looks exhausted and melancholic, and his face is smeared with drops of blood. His bloodied hand holds a hairpin as he steers recklessly. Obsessively indulgent in his thoughts, he almost gets hit by a truck while driving. He recalls in his thoughts about someone whom he calls by the name Lolita. Humbert relates to his peaceful upbringing in France, where he encounters his first love, Annabelle Lee. Annabelle and Humbert never consummate their love, and Annabelle's death from typhus later haunts him. This trauma has made Humbert unable to overcome his infatuation with young girls whom he addresses as nymphets. Now middle-aged, Humbert comes to the United States, where he has accepted a job as a professor of English literature. He takes a room in the house of a widow, Charlotte Hayes, in a sleepy, suburban New England town. He is shown around the house by Charlotte and taken to his room. In the kitchen, Humbert checks his timetable and informs Charlotte that he might have to leave the place for a conference. Fearing that she might lose her only tenant, Charlotte insists Humbert stay and takes him to the backyard of the house. While they are outside in the backyard, Humbert sees Charlotte's 13-year-old daughter named Dolores Hayes. Because he is obsessed with the so-called nymphets, Humbert fixes his gaze on her as she is lying on the ground reading a magazine. Seeing Dolores, Humbert becomes instantly infatuated with her and decides to stay at the place. As Humbert spends his suburban life at Hayes' house, he follows Lolita's moves and spies on her due to his infatuation. He also confides his pedophilic longings in a journal. One night, Lolita comes to Humbert's room complaining that the music he is playing is not letting her sleep. After he turns off the music, Dolores goes to the kitchen and she is followed by him. Standing off unnoticed at a distance, Humbert gazes at Dolores with admiration. Her room also happens to be attached to the bathroom that leads to Humbert's room. One day as Humbert is busy writing his journal, Dolores comes to his room. She quickly sits on his lap without hesitation and starts chatting with him. He also flirts with her for a while until they are interrupted by Charlotte. One afternoon, Dolores, Humbert, and Charlotte sit on the garden swing indulging in mundane conversations. Both the mother and child argue about something, and Charlotte goes inside the house to fetch wine. At that moment, Dolores requests Humbert to persuade her mother to take her to a show, telling him that her mother is in love with him and would agree to whatever he wants her to do. When Charlotte returns, Humbert tells them a joke and they all laugh about it. Once when Charlotte and Humbert are out to a lake, Charlotte expresses her wish to send little Dolores away to some boarding school so that she could have Dolores' room rented as well. So one day, Charlotte really manages to convince Dolores to go to the summer camp despite her reluctance. As they load Dolores' belongings into the wagon, Humbert watches them from his window. Just when they are about to leave, Dolores runs back to the house to Humbert. On seeing him, she flings herself to him. For a brief moment, they share an intimate kiss, and then she runs back to her mom, and then they set off. Sometime after their departure, Humbert is in Dolores' room going through her clothes. Just then, Louise, the housemaid, comes to him and hands him a letter. The letter is from Charlotte, who confesses her love to Humbert. She gives him an ultimatum to leave the house by the time she arrives and also asserts that he will have to marry her if he does not leave the place. So Humbert marries Charlotte to keep Dolores close to him. One day, while Humbert and Charlotte are having a trivial conversation, Charlotte notices a locked drawer on his reading desk. She asks for the key to the drawer. Humbert simply replies that the key is hidden and that there are love letters in his drawer. As a sincere husband, Humbert carries out all the chores in the house, but he avoids any forms of physical intimacy with Charlotte. He mentions giving sleeping pills to Charlotte so that he can avoid any forms of entanglements with her. But as she grows used to swallowing pills, the medicine shows no effects. So one day, Humbert visits a doctor to get stronger sleeping pills that would knock out a person for 8 hours. When he returns home, he finds out that Charlotte has gotten hold of his journal from the locked drawer. She lashes out at him and threatens him that he will not see Dolores ever again. He denies all the accusations, saying that the journal is only just a novel that he has been writing. He then enters the kitchen to fetch some wine. Just then, the telephone rings and Humbert picks up the call. On the telephone, he is told that Charlotte is dead. Not believing it, he goes back to the room where he left her. He does not see her there, so he comes out of the house. He moves straight out to the road, where a crowd is gathered. A policeman shows him the face of a dead body to confirm that the woman is indeed Charlotte. A little girl comes to him and hands a bunch of letters to him, all of which were written by Charlotte to her daughter. He takes them and burns them later on. Now that he is completely free from his wretched wife, he packs all of his belongings. He also packs some of Dolores' clothes and makes a reservation at a hotel. Then he leaves for the summer camp and picks up Dolores. When she inquires about her mother, Humbert lies to her by saying that her mom has been admitted to a hospital due to some abdominal problem. At the hotel, Humbert inquires the receptionist about the reservation he made the day before. Meanwhile, Dolores notices a puppy and fools around with it for a while. She also notices the puppy's owner, and the man also flirts with her, which seems to make an impression on her. Later, when they are having dinner, Dolores points out the same man to Humbert. She recognizes the person to be Claire Quilty, who is a well-known writer. Later at night, Humbert leaves Dolores in the room for her to change. Outside, he is suddenly called upon by a voice of a man. It's the same man, Quilty, who inquires Humbert about Dolores. He denies the fact that Humbert is her father. He also asks about her mother, to which Humbert simply replies, dead. Quilty asks him to have lunch with him the following day with the girl, but Humbert says that he will be leaving with Dolores the next day. He enters the hotel after bidding Quilty goodbye. The next morning, Humbert and Dolores make love before they hit the road. During their journey, they stop at a gas station. Dolores asks Humbert to lend her some money so that she can make a call to her mother. At this, Humbert reveals to her that her mother is dead. That night, as they stay at a motel, Dolores mourns her mother's death while Humbert consoles her. After that, they began their extensive travels all over the United States. They stay at different motels and enjoy their travels. Their road trip comes to an end when they finally reach Beardsley College, where Humbert is a professor. When they reach their apparent destination, Humbert visits the principal of the college and he willfully takes his position as the professor. They take a flat at one of the houses and young Dolores is admitted to a school. Humbert happily carries out his duties as a loyal guardian. One day, Dolores asks him if she could join a play at her school, to which he refuses. She also requests him to increase her allowance, but he plainly refuses all of her requests. Then she tries to seduce him and makes him agree to increase her allowance. One day, he pays a visit to the theater where she is practicing the play with her friends. One of her friends approaches Humbert and shows him the playwright who actually wrote that play. Surprisingly, the playwright happens to be Quilty, whom he met back at the hotel. As the days go by, Humbert starts suspecting that his stepdaughter really wants to escape from him, and thus he reasons that she has been storing and hiding away all of her allowances. One day, he receives a phone call informing him about the absence of Dolores in her piano classes, so he inquires her about the matter. She says that she had been practicing the play with her friend in the park. Her friend also confirms her alibi when he calls her. Still, he doubts that Dolores had set that up. He asks her if she has revealed to her friend about their relationship as well. The conversation suddenly turns into a heated argument, and at one point, Humbert even slaps her. She screams and storms out of the house, followed by Humbert. Though it's raining outside, she takes her bicycle and runs away. After hours of searching, he finds the bicycle parked outside of a retail shop. He sees Dolores inside, making a phone call. When he enters the shop, she approaches him and asks him to treat her with chocolate syrup. The two then leave the place, and on her way back home, she tells him that she wants to leave Beardsley. And this time, she will be the one who chooses where they will be going. After the incident, both of them hit the road once again. This time on the road, Humbert realizes that they are actually being followed by someone. Fearing that the follower might be a detective, he jots down the plate number of the vehicle. But the pursuer seems to be aware of this and changes the vehicle every time. Through all of these pursuits, Humbert is aware of the follower's presence. Once on their way, their car stops due to a flat tire. While he changes the tire of the wagon, a car comes their way and stops a few meters away. Humbert notices this, and thinking that it's the detective, he rushes to him. But the guy flees. So failing to get any information about their follower, they continue their journey. They make their stop once again at some motel. Humbert leaves Dolores at the place to buy some bananas and warns her not to go outside all alone by herself. After he is done shopping, he gets his beard shaved at a barber shop. When he returns, he notices that Dolores has been outside. He also sees the same car parked outside of the house. Fearing that somehow Dolores has managed to plan her escape with this mysterious pursuer, he asks Dolores to tell him who the guy really is, but he gets no answers from her. Haunted and troubled by his own delusions, Humbert cannot sleep at night, so both of them leave the place immediately. During their stay, Dolores contracts an illness, so he takes her to the hospital. The doctor assures him that there is nothing to fear about. He suggests Humbert let Dolores stay at the hospital for a night for complete recovery. He also asks him to return to their lodging, to which Humbert reluctantly agrees. The following morning, Humbert calls to check up on his stepdaughter. The nurse reveals to him that Dolores has already been picked up by Uncle Gustav. Half delirious and fully enraged, he rushes to the hospital to inquire about her. He strangles the doctor in a wild frenzy and asks for Dolores, but he gets no answer. Later, he calms down and leaves the hospital. He tries to trace this Uncle Gustav and searches for him in all of their previous lodgings, hoping to get a lead. But Humbert fails to trace this person, nor does he find Dolores. Seeing that he won't be able to find her, he half-heartedly returns to Beardsley. After 3 years, he finally receives a letter from Dolores. He finds out that Dolores is married and is pregnant with a child. Assuming that she has married the man who had followed them on their travels, he becomes determined to kill him. He goes to see Dolores. There he finds her poor and pregnant at 17. He realizes that her husband is not the man who kidnapped her from the hospital. When pressed, she admits that it was actually Claire Quilty who had taken her from the hospital that day. She confesses that she actually loved Quilty, but he kicked her out when she refused to participate in a child pornography orgy. Still devoted to her, Humbert begs her to return to him, but Dolores gently refuses to do so. Humbert gives her $4,000 and departs. He tracks down Quilty at his house and shoots him multiple times, killing him. After that, he flees the crime scene in that same worn-out station wagon of his. He is followed by cops and they request him to pull over, but he does not seem to care and keeps on driving. Finally, when his path is completely blocked, he steers his wagon to a pasture. He stops his car and comes out of it. Finally, as he remembers his beloved Dolores, he is captured by the cops. The movie ends with an explainer that Humbert died in prison while Dolores passed away during her childbirth. Be sure to like and subscribe. See you next time.